In this video, we are going to be talking about proportions and how do we solve them. So what is a proportion? Proportion is when you have a ratio equaling a ratio, aka a fraction equaling a fraction, but they need to be equal to each other. So basically, if you have a fraction, it's going to be equal to another fraction. So for example, if you have 2/3, then it would be equal, could be equal to 4/6, right? 2/3 is equivalent to 4/6. 4/6 is equivalent to 2/3. So that's the idea of a fraction equaling a fraction, but they are actually equal to each other. So if you have something like this, but you're missing one of the values or two of the values or whatever the case might be, how do you go about finding that missing value? And we cross multiply to solve that. So if you have, back to this original one, if you have this fraction, where you have some fraction equals another fraction, if you take their cross products and say A times D would be equal to B times C. Okay, so let me show you that that's true. So if you have 2/3, which is also equal to 4/6, if you take that cross product of 2 times 6, is it equal to 3 times 4? And yes, they're both 12. Okay, so that's just kind of showing that cross multiplying those, it basically takes something out of a fraction and will set it up into an equation where you can actually solve. Okay, so anytime that I see proportions, I'm going to cross multiply to solve. So I first have to recognize, do I have a proportion? Do I have a fraction equaling a fraction? If I do, then I can cross multiply. So I'm going to take the, I personally take the variable cross product first. So 6 times x is going to equal 4 times 9. So 6x equals 36. If I divide by 6, we get x equals 6. So 6/4 would be equal to 9/6. Okay. And then same thing here. I'm going to take the cross product with the variable first. So I'd have 4x times 20 would equal 5 times 17. All right, so there's my cross products that are equal to each other. 4x times 20 is 80x, equaling 5 times 17 is 85. And then we're going to get x by itself by dividing by 80. All right, so I need to simplify that fraction. So let's say I'm kind of looking at it going, I don't really know what goes into it. I look at it and see, I think 5s go into it. So here's one way to do that, is taking 85, dividing it by 5, and then taking 80, dividing it by 5. So I get an answer of 17/16. Okay, so that's one way of simplifying your fraction, but if you don't recognize that 5 goes into both of them, your calculator can do this for you without having to figure that out. If you take 85 divided by 80, it's going to be some fraction or some decimal. Now, that's not what you want. You want the simplified fraction. So press the math button and then frac. So it's going to take that decimal and convert it into a fraction, and it'll convert it into the simplified version of that fraction. Oops, I did it. So 17/16. Okay, so that always is an option. All right, so doesn't matter if you have more variables thrown into this mix, everything still is the same. So we'll take that cross product, which is going to be 5 times x minus 2. Okay, I'm going to put it in parentheses because it's 5 times the whole thing, so I'll have to do some distribution. It's going to equal 3 times the x plus 8. All right, so we now have an equation. We'll get rid of our parentheses with distribution. So 5 times x is 5x. 5 times 2 is 10. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times 8 is 24. All right, and then let's start shifting stuff around. I'm going to take the 3x and bump it over to this side. I like to keep the variables positive if I can, so I'll have 2x minus 10 equals 24. So my variables are already combined. Now I have these like terms to put together. So I'll add the 10 over to this side. So we're sitting with a 2x, this will go away, equals 34. Divide by the 2 to finish it off. X would equal 17. All right, and then this one's a little bit weirder looking. It looks like you don't have a fraction equaling a fraction, but you do, because every single value, variable, number, doesn't matter, can be a fraction just by putting a 1 under it. So I didn't change anything, I just changed the look into a fraction. So I'll take this cross product, so let me just maybe rewrite it to kind of line things up a little better. So I'd have 7 over 1. And then here's my variable cross product. So x times 7 is 7x. 3 times 1 is 3. Divide by 7. X equals 3/7. Okay, and there is my fraction, or there's my solution. And then we got one last with some variables kind of thrown into this mix, or some numbers basically. But we have a proportion. We have 450 square feet for 1.2 gallons. Maybe it's paint. So 1.2 gallons covers 450 square feet. So if you have 1,250 square feet, how many gallons would you need? Well, we can set it up as a proportion, which they've already done, and we'll solve away. So we'll cross multiply. So x times 450 is 450x. And then 1.2 times 1250, I don't know. So 1250 times 1.2 is 1,500. All right, and then we need to divide by 450. So 1,500 divided by 450 is a lot of threes. So 3.3333, on and on and on. This is where I would read directions, make sure we know where we're rounding this thing to. And let's assume that they said to the nearest tenth, so 1 decimal place. So there's my nearest tenth. That 3 is not enough to do anything to that. So if we were painting 1,250 square feet, we would need 3.3 gallons. All right, and that was solving equations involving proportions.